My parents made me their servant, though it was more than that. I endured numerous humiliations. They openly mocked me, and my life seemed to be a living hell. If any of you don't believe this is real, welcome to my story. I'll show you the flip side of my family life, and you'll see. If your parents won't let you go out to a party, that's not the worst thing that can happen. My name is Jess. I was 17 years old at the time. For as long as I could remember, my parents have been drinking all the time. They could stay in their state for a long time, and when they were sober, they would go to work, make money, and spend it all on booze again. In our house, I was the only hostess, making sure the house was clean, the laundry was done, and cooking. My folks, if they came home from work, would immediately start giving me commands. They were pros at it. Get up, sit down, bring food, clean up, do 20 push-ups in a row, my mother would say. I would go to school until lunchtime, and afterward, I would run home in a hurry and start doing chores. Sometimes I didn't always make it because of the lessons, and then the scary part would begin. My parents would come into the house, assess the situation, as they said, then take off their uniforms, boots, and weapons, then cast a glance at the floor, and my mother would run her finger over it. In case the floors were dusty or even a little dirty, I would be severely punished, like that day. And why aren't the floors cleaned? Sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, ma'am. I have to answer to the law. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't have time. I'll do it right now. So you're suggesting that I, tired after work, should sit and watch you finish your personal chores? Do you have the right to do that? I'm tired. Get me something to eat. Yes, sir. While Mom and Dad sat down on the couch, I was already getting a hot dinner ready. None of you are more professional or faster at opening bottles of liquor. I could open wine with a corkscrew in exactly 3 seconds. I learned that the hard way. If the corkscrew isn't out in 3 seconds, in 2 seconds you'll have it in... That's what my mother used to say. It wasn't that my dad was less aggressive, he was just lazy. But if he didn't like something, he was always happy to watch my childhood crumble. Why didn't I run away, you ask? I had my reasons. I'll tell you about them as the story progresses. Well, I didn't have time to mop the floors that day. While my parents were eating dinner, according to a regulation they made up, I stood at the table steady as a soldier and waited for their instructions. If the food was below 75 degrees Celsius, then that food would end up on my head. And if it wasn't tasty, they'd make me eat it within 10 seconds, 2 servings of it. Otherwise, they would push the levers, the very ones that made me unbearable. I could endure anything. The beatings, the hunger, the lack of water, even the ban on going to the bathroom for 24 hours. But not this. And they knew where my weak spot was, and pressed it. Then I gave up and said I would do anything. The food is good. I approve. You can have a glass of water, and also take your food to the basement. Thank you, ma'am. I thank you. Just go. I put food on a tray and ran to the basement. 10 minutes later, I was back where I was before. Dad went into the bathroom, and there was screaming coming from there. I had forgotten to turn on the hot water, and my dad got cold under the shower. My mom immediately swung the water bottle and started hitting me on the back. I was screaming, begging for mercy. Then someone rang the doorbell. My mom opened the door, and a cop was standing right outside. Hi, ma'am. Your neighbors called the police. They said there was screaming coming from your house. Yeah, sorry. We didn't mean to make any noise. My daughter and I were practicing a song, weren't we, honey? I slowly walked to the door and looked up. Standing outside the door was someone I knew. He had been my friend when I was a child, and he'd confessed his love for me. Still, he had fulfilled his dream of becoming a policeman. I smiled at him as best I could. Jess, hi. Hi, Adam. Are you okay in there? I didn't permit you to talk to my underage daughter. I'm sorry, we know each other. I'm an old friend of hers. Friend, you say? I don't know why I didn't know, but come on, you interrupted us anyway. Adam put his foot in front of the closing door and looked at my mom. He said he was on patrol nearby if anything was needed. Who the hell do you think you are, puppy? Do you even know who I am? I immediately intervened. I went outside, closed the door to the house, and walked him to his car. I told him I was fine, that it was time for him to go home, but Adam noticed the bruise on my arm, rolled up the sleeve of my blouse, and saw more bruises. What are they doing to you? Is this your mother? He asked nervously. No, I fell. I'm sorry, I have to go. Come with me, I'll help you. You know me, Jess, I'll help. I don't need help, just go. I went back into the house. My angry parents said that the neighbors would have to pay for hearing me, and they would hit the spigot again and go to the basement. I screamed into my pillow because it was unbearable. The nightmare lasted too long. I was forbidden to carry food to the basement for 24 hours. They wouldn't even listen to my requests. In the morning, my parents left for work, and I decided not to go to school that day and do chores around the house instead. Then the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Adam again.
Wait, don't close the door. I'm not in uniform. It's my day off. I came to see you as an old friend.
I closed the door to the house and went outside to him and asked him what he needed, and Adam said he wanted to help me and that he wouldn't leave me all alone. I cried. Why would you want to? Why?
I care about you. I'm not just gonna let you go.
You know my parents are in charge of the police department, right? They'll fire you or set you up. Stay out of it. They'll always get away with anything.
I know, I found out yesterday. But it doesn't have to be like this. Let me help. Let's go right now. I'll take you away.
I can't.
Why not?
It's my little brother, Harry, in the basement. They won't let him out of there. And if I go in there, they'll see it on the cameras. And then it'll be bad. I won't leave him alone with them. But there's an alarm on the door. I can't just go.
Okay, I have a plan. Wait for me tonight. Heard your parents like to drink?
He left and came back in the evening when my parents were having dinner. Adam came over with expensive booze, so Mom and Dad were happy to invite him in. To pretend, they sat me at the table too and let me eat. Naturally, it was all a performance. They questioned Adam about his life, laughed, and pretended to be friendly, normal parents.
Where's Harry?
I choked. Dad clutched a fork in his hand.
You mean our son?
Dad asked.
He's staying at Grandma's. He likes it better there. Does Jess have a grandmother? I've never heard of her.
She just didn't tell you, did you, honey? Yeah.
Well, thanks for dinner. Let's drink to a wonderful evening. Oh, Mrs. Jones, you're a great cook.
My parents drank the whole bottle and were already intoxicated. Adam got up from the table at the same moment my parents fell out of their chairs.
Don't worry, they'll sleep for an hour or two. Do you know the code to the door?
Yeah.
Get ready, we're leaving.
We managed to free Harry. We ran out of my house and got into Adam's car. He drove us to the hotel where his friend worked. We were hidden away for a while. The next day, the police were all over the place, but Adam had already leaked the information, videotaped my beatings, Harry, the things I was punished with, in the many bottles of liquor. He'd stashed it away for the right moment. For the first 2 days, Harry and I lived there, Adam bringing us food. Then the staff knocked, and when I opened the door, my mother and father were standing there. In fear, I took 2 steps back, and Harry cowered in the corner.
Do you think we wouldn't find you? My mother asked.
I didn't know what to do. Fear was numbing me. Dad closed the door and took off his belt. Mom took a glass from the table.
You will be severely punished for running away,
she shouted, and swung it. Suddenly, the door, Adam and a bunch of reporters burst in. They were filming, taking pictures.
Caught red-handed, abuse of their own children,
the press shouted. Mom and Dad were confused, trying to justify themselves, but it was too late. 10 minutes later, the whole thing had spread online, and 2 months later, they were stripped of their parental rights and put behind bars. Adam became our legal guardian. It's been 2 years since then. They have also been hard, as Harry and I have been in rehab. However, all that nightmare is now behind us, and finally, we are sleeping safely. Hello, everyone. My name is Eliza. I had a difficult period in my life, even the most difficult. Of course, it's a little easier now, but what I went through almost made me give up. I will tell you everything now in more detail. And you, please, like the video, write your opinion in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm in high school. I'm 15 years old, and I've never been an ardent party girl. Yes, I was the most ordinary girl who studied, helped my mother with chores around the house. My mother had a second marriage. That is, I lived with my stepfather. They had twins, and my mother had absolutely no time for me. On the one hand, I understood that I was an adult, and I needed to support my mother. It is more difficult for her, but on the other, I still felt the need for her presence in my life. But ever since she got pregnant, there has been less and less of her. The only thing left for me is to move on,
go to school and help around the house. Well, then some kind of nightmare began. When the babies were born, it was great, of course. We were all happy, but most of all, I was worried about my mother. When they were discharged from the hospital, something started at home. There was a round-the-clock yell. It was impossible to sleep or do homework in the house because the girls were constantly yelling. Then one, then another. I had no idea how to help her. And on the other hand, I just wanted silence. Once, when my father left for work, my mother asked me to stay and help her with the little ones. I couldn't because I had an important exam waiting for me at school. I couldn't miss it. All of a sudden, she started yelling at me a lot. She called me a shitty daughter, and I was offended by her. What right did she have to call me that? Out of anger, I said a lot of unnecessary things to her. I probably shouldn't have said it, but I couldn't help myself. I shouted that it wasn't my fault that she had remarried and had to give birth. My mother felt like cold water had been thrown over her. She stood up straight and left. Full of anger, I slammed the door and ran to school. By the way, yes, that day I successfully failed the exam, and this made me even more angry. I've never been so angry before. Anyway, just in time for me to step out into the hallway after the exam, Cal came up to me. This is a guy from another group. He has been hitting on me for a long time, but I did not return his love. He invited me to a party in honor of the fact that his parents went on vacation and left him alone in their big house. I decided to accept the invitation and went with him as agreed. I was very drunk that night, and I think I was taken with a first glass of champagne. I felt so bad that I couldn't control myself anymore. All I remember is Cal pouring me another glass of champagne or wine and then inviting me into his bedroom. I didn't even say anything. I just went with him, and I don't remember much about what happened there. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like my whole body was hurting, including my head. Cal started to say something to me, but I put my hand over his mouth. I didn't want to hear it. I got dressed and left. I heard a lot more from my mother, and our relationship heated up. But the problems didn't end there. After a week, I noticed something. I had delayed menstruation. I bought a pregnancy test, and yes, it's like I've won the fucking jackpot. I got pregnant. All I felt at that moment was regret and confusion. I felt sorry for myself, and also terribly afraid. I now did not know what to do and how to be. I definitely didn't want to tell Cal about it, and I planned not to tell anyone yet. My mother knocked sharply on the bathroom door, and I ran out of it like I was scolded. I ran into my room and remembered that I had left the test in the bathroom. A second later, my mother ran out of there shouting, "Are you pregnant?" I didn't have time to come up with an excuse, so I just said yes. She asked who the father was, and I said I didn't know, or rather I didn't remember. She almost had a heart attack. No, I wasn't hoping for anything, and I hadn't even decided what to do about keeping the baby or not, but my mother's behavior made me give up, and I suddenly wanted to give birth to her for evil. She went and wailed every day, slowly dripping on my nerves. She demanded that I have an abortion. I said I was going to give birth. To be honest, I didn't expect such a reaction, but she collected all my things and put them out the door. I couldn't believe she'd done that. Well, how can you kick out your pregnant daughter? I felt a sense of despair and resentment, and all I wanted to do was cry. I cried a lot and every day. It's a good thing my girlfriend took me in. Natalie was kind, and she lived alone with her parents. Nat understood my situation and promised to help me in any way she could. I don't know how long I lay and cried. Apparently it was influenced by hormones. It's been a week, and I haven't heard from my mother. Of course, this upset me even more. My stepfather didn't care about me. I didn't need anyone but myself and my girlfriend. As soon as I thought about it, someone came to the door. Imagine, it was my stepfather. He brought me money, food, and clothes. It turns out that Natalie told him where I was, and he decided to help a little. I didn't expect it. When I asked where my mom was, he said she was home with the girls, apologized for her, and said she was having a hard time, so she was taking it out on me. I asked him to tell her that I was not a scapegoat, and that if it was so difficult for her to think about me, then let her not strain herself. Apparently, she had no place left for me in her life. My stepfather must have felt it too, so it was like he was apologizing. I accepted his help, and then he left. I gave the whole amount to Natalie for my living expenses. We held out for another month, but I needed care, a doctor and all that, and I didn't even know where to go. I was so scared. I was getting even more depressed when someone knocked on our door again. I thought it was my stepfather again, but Cal was standing outside the door. He threw himself on me, kissed me, hugged me, and swore that he would love our child more than anyone else. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was kidding, but it turns out I was wrong about him. Cal hugged me and asked me why I didn't say anything, why I didn't tell him, and all I said was, "Are you sure the baby's yours?" To which he replied that he did not doubt it for a second, and he was right. Cal talked to his parents, and they took me home with them. He had a great family, they accepted me, and Cal started working for his father and earning money. I took a sabbatical from school to calmly go through the pregnancy and give birth. In general, wish me good luck, because in a couple of months, we will see our baby.